Hello everybody, welcome back. Up and Off Road here, and today I'm going to be showing you how you can stop rust from coming back, and I'll be using this POR 15 rust paint, which is my favorite way to prevent rust. So the first thing you're going to want to do is chip off all the surface rust like I have done here. The stuff is meant to be painted directly over rust, but for example, if there's flakes like of rusty metal, like it's going to break off, it really can't seal that. But once you get that done, you're going to want to wipe it down with degreaser like we have here, let that dry, and then you're going to want to wipe it down again with paint thinner and let that dry. Now if it is bare metal, you're going to want to use POR 15 metal prep, which I'll put up on screen here in a second. So that way it gives you this zinc phosphate coating, it etches the metal, and it gives this paint something to chemically bond to. And as well, this paint also chemically bonds to the rust itself, so it seals it up and stops it from coming back. Now, one other thing I do want to mention too, when you're degreasing or using paint thinner, you're going to want to get a good like old towel or face cloth rag. You're really not going to want to use paper towel for this because it will exactly tear and break down the paper towel and leave, left behind residue. And with a good quality rag, you're not going to get quite as much of that. And with this paint, metal prep or, cleaning it all down is very, very important to get a good seal to stop that rust from coming back. And we are back, and we have got the rear end all painted, as you can see. Now, one thing about this paint is it has a very, very nice gloss finish, which I like. Now, the only bad thing about that is that UV rays destroy this paint. So if you are going to put on something that's going to be exposed and see a lot of sun, you should, I would recommend that you top coat it, because if you don't, over time the UV rays will get at this paint, break it down, cause it to fail, and therefore the rust is going to come back. This rear end really doesn't matter because it's under the vehicle. It's not going to get any sun, so I'm not going to top coat this. So this is my first coat. I did the front side of this rear end. I'm going to have to flip it over when it dries and do the other side. Now, you should do at least 2 coats. I'm going to go with 3 on this, since this is a spot that's going to get a lot of wear and tear, a lot of rocks. It's right in the salt and the mud and all that. So I'm going to really try to prevent this from coming back. This stuff is really great because it is actually meant to be applied over surface rust. Now, I already touched on this. Doesn't mean great big giant flakes of rust that are falling off, all those little pennies that fall off. Not that. You're going to want to wire brush it or scrub it or scrape it or chip it off and get down to surface rust and paint it just over that, and it will chemically bond to that rust and seal it up. Now, like I said, if it's bare metal, you're going to want to use POR 15 metal prep, which will give something to paint to chemically bond to. I would, let that soak on there for 15 or 20 minutes, then just wash it off with water, let that dry, and then hit it with the paint. Now, this POR 15, it is fairly expensive. It is anywhere from $70 to $100 a can. I've seen it online for a little bit less than that. I paid $100 a can at your local auto supply. You can always get it online cheaper, of course. I think it's 100% worth it, and something that you will be surprised is a little bit of this paint goes a really long way. This can here is a quart. Now, we did this, pretty much this whole rear end. I did a whole Jeep TJ frame, Jeep TJ transfer case skid plate, and Jeep TJ gas tank skid plate. Now, that is a lot of area to cover with just that paint, and that is all doing 2 coats. So that's pretty good. I would recommend you buy the little tiny 6-pack cans. I don't know exactly how much they are, but one thing I found with this big can here is that was over a month ago that I painted all that, and the cover is really hard to get off. And even though I sealed it up properly, the paint in there has a crust thin layer over top of it that I had to break through. So, it hardens and dries. So I would try to buy as much as you need for that time. It's something that I know now for next time. Now, one other thing I do want to mention about this paint is I highly recommend that you wear gloves when you are applying this paint, especially if you're brushing it on or even if you're spraying it too, is because it does not come off your hands. It'll take days for, the oils in your skin or it to wear off your hands. And I really haven't found anything that scrubs it off other than, acetone or paint thinner, but you really don't want that on your hands either. This paint, it provides a very nice finish, but it also gives you a very hard texture, it doesn't chip or break or flake off super easy. It really sticks to paint, metal, and rusted metal. It works quite well. And one other thing too, if you have existing paint, this paint is not really meant to stick to that super well. It will a little bit, but I would recommend that you strip all that paint down to bare metal and then use POR 15 metal prep and then apply this. It'll last a lot longer. So overall, this is probably my favorite rust paint product. It's the only one I've really found that actually worked. I've tried a bunch of different ones, some, acid-based ones and all that stuff, and I really didn't find they worked all that well. After 2 or 3 years, the rust kind of came back. I'm sure there is some out there other than this stuff that works, but as far as I've found, this POR 15 is probably the best one that I've ever used. I think it is well worth the money. I would give it a 10 out of 10. Highly recommend, especially if you're restoring a vehicle and you want to paint the frame or the rear ends or skid plates, like something that's really going to be down in the salt. If you live above the rust belt or the rocks and the sand and all that, this paint will stand up very, very well. But as I said before, you're going to want to keep in mind it does not like the sun. The sun will break it down and cause it to fail, so it will have to be top coated if it is exposed to those conditions. And so that's it for the video today, guys. If you thought that was a good video and you want to support me, hit that subscribe buttons. And if you have any idea for future videos that you would like me to do, let me know down in the comments below. Or if you have any questions, let me know down there as well. And we'll see everyone later.